Welcome back, or welcome to Grateful and Full of Greatness. I'm your host, Mark Glicini. On this podcast, I sit down with guests who, in my opinion, live their lives with the pursuit of greatness in mind. This platform allows me to discuss and to explain strategies that go into reaching peak performance. This is episode number 34. My guest is Matt Abbott, professional lacrosse player for over a dozen years. Matt embodies what it means to be a pro. Member of Team USA, 9-time Major League Lacrosse All-Star, 4-time champion, Tewaaraton finalist, All-American. His lacrosse accolades seem endless. He is a current member of the Whipsnakes Lacrosse Club in the Premier Lacrosse League, as well as a devoted husband and father off the field. Matt was a leader on the Chesapeake Bay Hawks and showed me the ropes my rookie and early seasons as a pro. Originally from Syracuse, New York, he attended Syracuse University and was captain his senior year. Matt served as a volunteer assistant for Colgate Men's Lacrosse for 7 seasons. On top of all that, he is a co-owner and investment advisor at Armory Capital Management. On all fronts, Matt encapsulates what this podcast is all about. I'm so excited to have him on. Without further ado, Matt, thanks for being here.
Look, thanks for having me. It's an honor.
An idea I've brought with me over the years is emulate until you can innovate. And I talked to you and I've spoken about you as someone I've looked to emulate as soon as I walked in the doors as a pro. Could you share who some of those early influences were for you in terms of those who you emulated and looked up to in your childhood?
Yeah, I mean, I've been very fortunate to have been born into a lacrosse family. Both my grandfather, Larry, and my father, Tom, played collegiately at Syracuse. My older brother, Mike, played at the University of Virginia and then Cortland State in his collegiate days. So, being born into that lacrosse family, that's who I look up to first and foremost. Obviously, as I don't know if you know this or not, Mark, but my parents' house, I grew up in a house about a mile from the Carrier Dome, just off of Syracuse's campus. So not only was I, third generation to go there, I was also, as a kid growing up in the shadows of the Dome, just a huge fan of that program, obviously from a very young age. Was fortunate enough to go there and obviously play and have some success. So obviously looking up to, those 90s Syracuse players, early 2000s were some of my early sort of role models on the lacrosse field. And then as I got into the pro ranks, that just sort of expanded to an even bigger group of who I would consider legends of the game. On my Bayhawks team when I was drafted, Billy Gladding was a guy that, played a similar position to me. 3 or 4 years my senior, he was actually a teammate of my brother's at Virginia that I knew, a little bit through that experience. But he really took me under his wing my rookie year and sort of showed me the ropes from a, defensive midfield, two-way midfielder perspective. And, I think that really helped me get off on a great foot and, launched what is as you mentioned, a 12-year pro career and hopefully still counting.
Awesome, man. And what I like that you touched upon that I was, as I was preparing for this was kind of how you showed me the ropes and who showed you the ropes. I've mentioned this on many podcasts in the past, but it's always important to bring it back up. I read a book called Seasons of a Man's Life. And at the end of the book, it talks about how we need mentors in the same way a child needs a parent. And I feel as if that gets lost. I don't know why. Perhaps we stop learning at the end of our high school and college years. But I feel like that's when the journey just starts on the how to do this in life. Matt, I've always, as I was preparing this for this conversation, the word humility came to mind as something, because I was looking through all your accolades and achievements, and there's a lot of a wow factor that comes with that. But I've never seen you boast. I've never seen you brag all along the way. Where would you say you get that sense of humility from?
Yeah, I think, it starts with, my upbringing, my sort of the way my parents raised me, I think, and especially in a sport like lacrosse where, being a team sport and particularly a position that I've played, primarily a two-way midi and, sort of filling in wherever the team needs me. I don't know, it's just sort of who I've been. I've been surrounded by a lot of great people, first and foremost, and obviously great players on the field. And it's always, my motto sort of always been, team above self. And I don't think that's a very uncommon feeling in the pro lacrosse ranks. I think we all realize that, the team comes first and foremost. And I've just been very lucky. Been very lucky to be surrounded by a lot of great people. I was talking to some folks after this past season in the off season, and the conversation got going, and we were talking about the great teammates I've had over the years and the great teams I've been a part of. And honestly, I look back and I don't think there was ever a year, with the exception of maybe my senior year in high school, where I would even consider myself the best player on the team. So I'm always surrounded by players that are great players, great teammates, willing to do whatever it takes for the betterment of the team. And if I can add to that mindset, that's going to help lead to team success. So it's a simple formula, but I guess simple in practice, but tough to execute.
One of the things that I admire about you, Matt, is your ability to be one of the best on the team and the best for the team. And that's not easy to do both. Like those are described in your All-American accolades, but also the captain at every single level. To a younger student athlete that will be listening to this, how would you say they should go about balancing that desire to be the best on the team while being the best for the team?
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe a difficult balance, but I think first and foremost, and I think maybe you talked about this with Blaze a little bit, it's sort of, putting the hard work and controlling the things that you can control. Only you can determine how much hard work you put in off the field, and particularly in the scholastic area, that includes also classroom work as well. You can't just spend all your time playing lacrosse and training for your athletic achievements. You have to do so for your academics as well. So that's maybe the first bit of advice I would give to maybe a younger, student athlete of the game. It's not just you working in practice for the 2 hours a day during the season or whatever is obviously not going to get the job done. I enjoyed putting in the extra work because I got such joy out of playing the game and preparing for practices and games. So it never really felt like extra work, even though it was. But you can control only a certain number of things. But if you take care of, again, classroom work, whether it's conditioning or skill work on the field, a lot of other things are going to line up for you. And if you surround yourself with people of that same mindset, great things can be achieved in a team setting, especially in the world of lacrosse.
Staying along that same thread in terms of advice and guidance, one of the things that I wanted to ask you that I'm just going to call the 15, 25, 35 is what message would you share with the 15-year-old? What do you know now that you wish you knew when you were 25? And now that at the age of 35, is there something that you're focusing on now that perhaps you hadn't in the years prior as much?
Yeah, I would say to that young 15-year-old, first and foremost, enjoy the ride, enjoy the journey. I mean, I'm 35 years old now, looking back on my playing career. And again, I hope I've got a few years to go, but nothing's guaranteed, obviously. So I would say to that young 15-year-old, enjoy the ride. Whether you just play this game in high school and don't go to the collegiate level, or if you carry it all the way to, your mid 30s and you play pros for many, many years, enjoy the ride. What I cherish most looking back on all these years I've played is, the memories of locker room time with the guys and the bus rides. And it's the wins and losses too, but it's everything in between. It's the practice time. It's just the camaraderie of that group. So that's what I would say to young 15-year-old, to somebody who's in that 25 age group, maybe he's, climbed the mountain already, obviously gone through college, maybe a couple years in the pros, stay hungry. We're in a time now, we're in this sport. You've got the opportunity if you can take care of business to play it for a very long time. And I've been thankful and grateful to do that myself. So stay hungry and certainly give back too. And I think a lot of the guys do. And I think that's what makes lacrosse so great, is such a tight knit community. Obviously one of the fastest growing sports in this country. And we hope that trend continues. But I think that in part is because there's been so many great people that really embrace that and give back to where they've come from across the board. And I guess to the 35-year-old, it's, really savor every moment. You never know when the last practice or the last game is going to be your last, when you're going to hang up the cleats. like I said, I hope I've got a few years left in me, but again, nothing's guaranteed. I feel very lucky this past year having the opportunity to play again after taking the 2020 season off. My son Landon was born in May of 2020, so I was in sort of a paternity leave during the bubble seasons, and decided not to play for the Bayhawks in that 2020 bubble because Landon was, I think, just about a month and a half old at the time. So sat that out, and he's a year and a half old now, and he was able to come to some games this past summer, and that just, those are memories that I'll have forever. Having my son be able to watch me play, and I guess my next goal is to play long enough for him to remember watching his dad play. But we'll see how that goes. So,
what's ironic is I was formulating these questions while watching Monday Night Football, watching Tom Brady beat up on my New York Giants, and just to see his level of focus and energy. He even rush for a first down, and he gets up and he's going crazy. And I just thought I'd ask along the same front on your end in terms of the longevity factor. How do you maintain that desire, that kind of, because training is not always easy. You're not going to always love it. But how do you keep that focus and keep driving forward even late into the game?
Yeah, it's not easy. It's not always easy, obviously. And as the older I get, the recovery time after games certainly takes a little bit longer. But what keeps me coming back is I still get great joy from it. From being around the guys and being around the sport, playing the game. Now being a father, I hope to pass that on to my son as well. I mean, obviously, if he wants to play lacrosse and is happy with it and gets the same joy that I did, fantastic. But whatever he chooses to do, just to pass on those characteristics and qualities that that I feel make this sport great and many other sports great too. It's really just the people. So yeah, it's not always easy, but I try and find joy in it because I know what the reward is. The reward, if I take care of business, and knock on wood, I've been very lucky with injuries. Obviously, some of that stuff is out of your control, but if you put in the work, training, I feel like that helps mitigate some injuries potentially. And I hope that I got a few years left in me. But again, at this age, I'm taking it. I used to say 1 year at a time. Now I'm just taking it sort of 1 week at a time as we go through the season. So
I love that. You look nationwide, and lacrosse is this fastest growing sport on the planet right now. I'm from New Jersey, hotbed maybe, but you're from upstate New York, which might be one of the hottest beds in terms of lacrosse. And thinking about you growing up in Syracuse, going to Syracuse, you talked about being 1 mile from the Carrier Dome. Your grandfather played it. It's definitely woven into the fabric. Could you maybe share a story or two on what it was like growing up through high school and college in that community, right? You brought it up before of being around like-minded individuals and the relationships that influenced you, but perhaps shedding light and highlighting just how big lacrosse is in upstate New York.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, this is really the birthplace of the sport. Obviously, the Onondaga Nation, the Haudenosaunee people, gave us the sport of lacrosse, and it's really taken off here. And I think, I've really been obviously a beneficiary of being born in an area where that sport is, if not one of the most popular sports for kids growing up here. So I've been very fortunate from that standpoint. Also fortunate to, as I mentioned, to be born into a lacrosse family. So I don't have a childhood memory before I knew lacrosse. It was literally, I came home and there was a stick there for me. So, but at the same time, I also felt like it was never forced on me. My parents let me play all different sorts of sports. I played hockey growing up, golf, soccer, you name it. Up until about high school, I played a bunch of sports. So gravitated towards lacrosse because that's what I got the most joy out of. And I think, as we mentioned from earlier, that speaks to the people and being from this area, the sport is so deeply rooted in the community here. And obviously you see that with, a lot of the college programs in the area, and obviously the players that come out of here that go on to play at the next level. So feel very fortunate from that standpoint to have been brought up in that environment. And I guess now that I'm sort of on the tail end of my playing days, the next step, and obviously I don't see myself ever getting away from the game, even when my playing days are done. My father and grandfather were both longtime officials in the sport of lacrosse. My father's still involved with officiating. He's the head of the Division I's men's lacrosse officiating group. So he's very involved in the game still at his age. And, officiating has been the way that he's done it. I don't know if officiating is going to be the way that I stick around it, but I could see myself, either coaching or whether it's if my son decides to play his teams. But I always see the sport being a part of my life, and trying to get back and keep that growth going, particularly here in the Central New York area.
Many things come to mind with that answer, Matt, and one of the things is perhaps a book called Range by David Epstein, where the first chapter is this Tiger versus Federer idea, where Tiger was almost born with a golf club in his hand and being on the Johnny Carson show at 3 years old. And then Federer, who had more of a pulley parent, I believe his mom was a pro tennis player, and he was never really forced to have it. And just to see kind of just from a nurture perspective that both could probably work to get to the highest level, that's what came to mind as you talked about. Yes, lacrosse was the lacrosse stick was the first thing that you ever saw as a child, and you were grow up around it, but you're never pushed towards it. And I think that's really important when you look at the childhood development of somebody. You talk about the area being so ingrained with the sport of lacrosse for the non-lacrosse listener, right? And this podcast being for more than just lacrosse players. What would you say it is about the sport that brings you all the joy and the love that you talk about the game?
Yeah, I think it all comes back to the people, and again, that is not unique to lacrosse. Obviously, that's unique to a lot of different aspects of life, whether it be other sports or work or family. It's the people, and it's in my experience, in my path and journey through the sport. Every step along the way, it's been incredible people who are very selfless, who are giving and willing and wanting to share their knowledge of the sport because they know how much joy it can bring. And I don't think that's unique to just lacrosse. Lacrosse has been my path, obviously your path too. But I think you surround yourself with great people, and whatever you do, good things are bound to happen. So, and that's been certainly my experience in the world of lacrosse.
Just listening to you, Matt, I've heard you use the word joy so many times so far, and I heard a great description that if you looked at a carbonated beverage, the fleeting bubbles is happiness, and the drink itself is joy, and it's here to stay for a very long time. And one of the quotes that comes to mind when I think of you is, "Your actions speak so loudly, I cannot hear a word you're saying." Right? And I know you love the sport. I know how much joy it brings you, because compared to other pro sports with salaries in the hundreds of thousands and millions, lacrosse is not there yet. And however, I've seen you and over the years drive and fly hours and spend days away from family, sacrificing so much time away from family and friends. Could you elaborate on why it's been so important for you, even as you gotten older?
Yeah, it's I don't know if I want to use this term, but I feel to a certain extent I'm a little bit addicted to it, and I mean that in a positive way. It brings me so much happiness. It's been a part of my life for so long, but along with that, it has been some sacrifice, particularly on, some family time over the years, because there is a lot of travel involved. So certainly my wife, Aleda, she and I were high school sweethearts. We've been, dating for it'll be 20 years this upcoming spring. Wow. Married for 6 years. So she's been, my biggest supporter for the vast majority of my lacrosse career. We started dating freshman year of high school. So she's been there every step of the way. Again, my biggest supporter, and, she's come to a fair number of games over the years, but there's been a lot that obviously I'm leaving town and now leaving her home with Landon, for the games they can't make it to. So, huge sacrifice on their part. But they've continued to allow me to chase my dreams in the realm of lacrosse. And, without that support, I certainly don't think I'd still be playing at this level. So I'm eternally grateful for that. Same goes for my parents in my younger years, driving me to countless number of games and tournaments. We don't get to where we are on our own. And I've certainly had a great support system and continue to this day. And that's something I'm extremely grateful for.
I love that. And bringing Landon and Aleda into the mix here, you use the term addicted, or that idea of being obsessed with some craft and really going for it. Talking about the yin and yang of that, doing a deeper dive into your life outside of lacrosse, how and where would you say you invest most of your time in the off season or during the weeks when you're not on the road? Where are you investing your time outside of the game?
Yeah, I mean, it's I think family comes first, obviously. So trying to spend that quality time, because it's I mentioned earlier about the fleeting moments on the lacrosse field and how quickly the journey goes. That same logic obviously applies to family life. Landon is now a year and a half old, and I feel like you blink and it was he was born just the other day. So that certainly has gone by fast, and we're just enjoying seeing him grow up in this sort of new normal that we're all living in with, pandemic, post-pandemic life, to try to keep him safe and healthy and happy. So that's sort of what comes to mind first and foremost. And then, obviously work life, working in co-owning an investment advisory firm in Syracuse, that is, a big time commitment, and obviously taking care of our clients is first and foremost there. But I've got a great business partner, Henry Wildhack, who we've been working together now for close to 10 years. He's been fantastic. And, I'm very thankful that it's sort of all fit together in my life. There's not a lot of downtime, but that's okay. I wouldn't want it any other way. And, again, very grateful to have the professional work balance with lacrosse and the family life. And everybody's really on the same page. My family's been my biggest supporter, as I mentioned, and I don't think I'd still be able to play if that weren't the case. Because there's just not enough hours in the day to spread it out amongst all those things.
100%. Just going into the nuances of lacrosse a little bit, I've often talked about how lacrosse is a great teacher for how to approach life, and in that same breath, how players tend to express their real life personalities when they're on the field in their lacrosse game. Could you share in your own words how lacrosse has helped you become an even better person off of the field, and perhaps how your personality shines in your lacrosse game?
Sure. Yeah. And I think that's very, very well said. I think, a lot of the reason for my parents encouraging me to play sports, not just lacrosse, but whatever I was passionate about as a kid, was, I learned life skills like a lot of people did, life skills through sports. You learn cooperation and teamwork, and you learn perseverance. You learn, the highs and the lows of the game, and how to cope with those and apply that to your everyday life. We're just playing a sport, and we're playing it because we love it. But some of those life skills that you learn, responsibility, accountability, I learned those through team sports, and in particular lacrosse growing up. So, I think that non-athletes probably learn it from other areas too. I mean, it's again, not unique to sports or lacrosse, but that's sort of my avenue of where I learned these life skills. And, I think, we've been teammates for a number of years in the past, and I've always tried to lead more by example than by voice. I've never been, I don't think, a very vocal or overly vocal leader. But tried to lead, and especially as I've gotten into my later years in professional lacrosse, to, take the young guys under my wing and sort of show them the ropes, and try and lead them in a way that, these are the things that you need to do, both from an individual and a team perspective, to have team success, try and have a decent longevity to your career. And what I've been pleasantly surprised by is, a lot of the guys, and I'd say many of the guys that I've run into as teammates over the years, they already have all those great qualities. They already know all these things. And I think just having that sort of that double reassurance from somebody who's been down that path before, really just sort of hammers it home. But it's, I've been very fortunate over the years, as I mentioned earlier.
There's two questions I want to ask inside that answer. The second one's going to be about the highs and lows that you talked about. Another is going to be, or the first was going to be A statistic I saw in the NFL, and I'm not sure what it is in lacrosse yet, but the average career span for an NFL player being something under 4 years. And if they make a Pro Bowl, it goes to over 11. And I thought that it was pretty amazing. And I look at you, Matt, and I see longevity. The first question I want to ask you is, what would you say are the factors from an individual or cooperation from the team perspective that go into longevity, if you had to give your best answer to that?
Yeah, it's controlling what you can control. So I think I've certainly put in a lot of work over the years to try and improve my individual skill set and then fit that into a team setting. Certainly a little bit of luck, as I mentioned earlier, knock on wood, I've been very lucky from the injury standpoint over the years. And I realized that a lot of guys that are, more talented or will work just as hard or harder than I did don't have their careers play out the same way because they've had some unfortunate injuries over the years. So certainly a little bit of luck, hard work. In lacrosse in particular, in the professional lacrosse game, I think that I've been lucky from the standpoint that my skill set also fits very well with that dynamic, meaning that, I'm a sort of a two-way midfielder. I can play defensive midi or offensive midi. I mean, this with our limited roster sizes, that's becomes a valuable skill set because you can fill a couple different spots on a game day roster. So I think that has certainly played a factor in my ability to play for all these years. And then again, being surrounded by great people who have, helped show me the way and, really taken me under their wing. Think of the coaches I've had with the Bayhawks over the years. Obviously, Brendan Kelly and Dave Cottle were huge influences in my pro lacrosse career. And, we're there for pretty much my entire time with the Bayhawks, and now with Coach Dagnita and Coach Murphy and Coach Grady with the Whipsnakes. So a lot of factors, and some of it's within my control, or those around me's control, but some of it's just luck too.
One of the things I like to talk about is this idea of staying versus becoming. And you're a perfect example of someone who's been able to stay. And I've looked to put words to it. I've said you have to be available, you have to be reliable, you have to be durable. And I think what you were talking about there in terms of your dynamic play is you have to be versatile too. And I love the kind of transitive property into real life that brings, because sometimes you have to wear multiple hats. Look at your life as an example, whether it's an investment advisor at one moment, coach the next, and then player, and then father and husband. You find a way to do it all. Going into the highs and lows, what would you say when you reflect on your career so far is a memory that sticks out, or two, of a really high moment, and then perhaps a low that helped you become who you are today?
Yeah, I think, obviously the obvious highs are, I've been very fortunate to be a part of, championship teams over the years. Two in college at Syracuse, 2008, 2009. And for me, again, growing up as a fan of that program and, having the family lineage there, I didn't know if I was ever, I aspired to get to that level and to win national championships and play for Syracuse. I didn't know if I'd ever be able to achieve that. And then when that came to reality, my junior and senior year to win those two titles, again, that's stuff of my childhood dreams. So I think those two certainly stick out. And then that just sort of team success continued with my years with the Bayhawks, 4 championships in the MLL over 11 seasons. And I think each one obviously a little bit different. Won in my second year in 2010. And then quickly won 2 others in 2012 and 2013. So it was 3 out of my first 5 years. And then we went through a little bit of a lull there in the interim. It really made me appreciate the journey and the climb to get back on top again. And then we're lucky enough to win again in 2019, which was my last year playing in the MLL. So it just, obviously those championship memories stick out, but more than just what I got such, satisfaction and I'll use the word joy again from achieving that in a team setting is, particularly in my later years, 2013, 2019, the last 2 titles of the teams that I was on were fortunate enough to win. For me to experience that again was great, but to see the younger guys get that championship experience, obviously on the teams we played on, guys are very successful. They've won championships at every level, but every so often, every championship team, there's always a few guys where it's their first one, and seeing the joy and the jubilation that those guys get from experiencing that. And that in my mind, that forms bonds. I mean, we all form bonds with our teammates over the years and, lifelong friends. But when you get that seal of a championship on top of it, that really sort of solidifies it to a certain extent, and hopefully provides guys lifelong memories, because I know it does for me.
Definitely. And I'm gonna have to probe on the low that really helped you bounce back.
Yeah, it's there's a couple that stick out, and one of them is not all that serious of a low. As I mentioned earlier, I've been very lucky with injuries over the years, but my senior year of college, I ended up tweaking my hamstring pretty good at the very end of fall ball, going into my spring of my senior year, and great training staff, athletic staff up at Syracuse, led by Troy Geralt, to get me back in shape for the spring. But it was taking a little bit longer than I think we all thought, and I think part of that was I was a little impatient on my end and trying to, push back sooner so I could be in top shape come January when spring practice started. Ended up missing the first few weeks of practice that spring, and thankfully Troy and the rest of the medical staff there were able to get me ready to go for the season itself or when games started. But so that was a little bit of a setback, and then I think another low. Which is sort of, again, a double-edged sword, because when I made the U.S. team in 2014, that was I can't even say that was a childhood dream come true, because that wasn't even on my radar. Making the world team was just so far beyond where I thought I could achieve. So that experience is something that I'll always cherish. But in that World Games, we lost in the gold medal games to Canada. And they put together a great team that year, and they were the better team without question in that gold medal game. So that was certainly a low, not getting to that highest level and not achieving, that crowning championship moment. But I think, that sort of relit a fire under myself. That's back in 2014 to continue to plow ahead and, try and get better, both on the field, off the field, and trying to achieve that success with the team again. So, certainly you learn from your wins and you learn from your losses, I think. And I've certainly had plenty of those over the years to learn from.
Yeah.
So.
I would say three quick ideas that come to mind that I always look to snap off when I ask about situations like that. Is a setback is a setup for a comeback. Every breakdown leads to a breakthrough. And I really feel as if you're able to keep that kind of perspective and in search of a silver lining, you're able to understand that winners lose more than losers lose, because they risk it more and they go for it more, and they put themselves in a situation for extreme highs and jubilations like you were talking about in the championship front, or extreme disappointment. And I loved how you talked about that idea of seeing the younger guys win it. And that goes directly with the next question that I had lined up for you is when you look at your full timeline of lacrosse so far, what would you say is different, and what's the same about Matt Abbott from the All-American to rookie to veteran?
Yeah, I think I've got certainly a different perspective on things now. And I think as much as I thought I appreciated things when I was younger, I think I truly have a better appreciation for them now. One, because I've been so fortunate to play for so long, but two, that I know that, again, certainly I've got less runway in front of me going forward. So, even, particularly this past season, not knowing how much or if I would play, to be able to, be a part of the Whipsnakes, play in every game, contribute, make it all the way to the championship game. I think I enjoyed, even though we came up short in the championship game to your chaos, I enjoyed that journey and appreciated that journey so much more. Because one, I had not played in 2020 because of the pandemic, and two, who knows how many more opportunities I'm going to get. So I think, perspective and appreciation is certainly heightened in my later years. And then I guess what's the same? I like to think that I try and prepare the same, put in the same amount of effort and work. And I don't think that'll ever change, because I know that's what in part got me here. It's learning new things, it's adding things, but it's also continuing to put in the work that's necessary to play at a high level.
You talk about that different perspective, and I have two questions that build off of that. The first is off of Joseph Campbell's idea of a hero's journey, that you go into this unknown world. Perhaps it was for you, that 2014 Team USA, where you didn't even know that world could exist. And you already talked about like the trials and tribulations, and this kind of atonement of coming back to the same place, but with a new perspective. And you thought that you appreciated when you were younger, but you definitely now have a greater appreciation. So the first question I have along that journey is this idea of finding mentors and teachers and helpers along the way. Who are, let's say, your top three that just come to mind as top three mentors that really have held your hand along the way and guided you up the mountain?
Yeah, I think it's got to start with my father, Tom, and my older brother, Mike. Mike is roughly 3 years older than I, so he was a senior when I was a freshman in high school. Always looked up to him growing up, both on the field and in life, really, as many younger brothers do. So they've certainly been my role models and guided me along the way. And even still to this day, my brother Mike, he's a coach in the college game. He coaches at the University of Pennsylvania. He's the offensive coordinator there. So he's I can honestly say that, growing up and even in some of my professional years, I was never even the best lacrosse player in my own family. So, so I could certainly take a lot from him and what he's achieved over the years. So those are two that come to mind. And then, I think of some of the teammates I've had, over the years, and obviously too many to list, but guys that are great leaders, great locker room guys. Our years at the Bayhawks, Brian Spallina, Nicky Polanco, and Matt Danowski come to mind. Guys that, bring the best out of people that are around them. Good locker room guys, really sincerely care about the guys that they play with. Those are three guys that are, guys that were, a little bit older than I am that I sort of looked up to. And then, obviously guys like yourself that have grown into these great leadership roles. And, we've built these friendships that I truly cherish. So just a lot of great people over the years, definitely.
Thanks for saying that. And Matt, when I walked into that locker room as a rookie in the Chesapeake Bayhawks, I just remembered you vividly, the preparation that you brought into the game, right? I don't know if you still do it, but you still tape your stick before every single game, and
every game. Yeah.
It's very meticulous, right? We could even go into the nuances of your candy cane tape job and using the ball to make sure it's right and no ripples. And could you just share as kind of a tangential thought on your preparation? I know you've had these influences, but is that something that you learned from somebody along the way, that having such meticulous preparation to every practice and game?
I guess it was learned traits over the years. I can't say exactly where I picked it up from, some of those things, but I'm a firm believer in, again, you put in the work, you put in the preparation, that's going to bear itself out on the field. It's not always going to lead to necessarily the outcome that you want, because you can't control that 100%. But you've got to put in the work, put in the preparation. And as you mentioned, for me, I'm not a overly superstitious person, but I think, some of those pregame rituals just sort of help me focus and get my mind right. It brings me back to a familiarity, sort of a centering of focusing on the game. And I guess the stick taping came from my early hockey days, taping your stick before every game. And I'm sure my older brother, he tapes his a little bit differently than mine, but that was a habit of his. So I think I picked it up from him, and I've been doing that for, at least for every high school, college, and pro game I've played in, and probably even sooner than that. I've done my stick the same way. And it's a simple, small gesture, but it allows me to get my mind right for the game and focus on the task at hand.
You talked about earlier when I asked you about the 15, 25, 35 to the 25-year-old to stay hungry. Would you, if I made it specifically about professional athletics or even a young business professional, what would you say would be your advice to those that are just getting started in this new arena where they don't have the structure of college, where they don't have the structure of high school, and they're looking to make it as a young professional and have impact right away? What would be the advice you give to that person?
Yeah, it's a great lead in. We've seen it in the lacrosse realm because you go from this structure of practice with your team 5 days a week with a game on typically Saturdays. You're 6 days a week. You're in that team setting, and that's where a lot of the work goes in. And then you get out into the professional ranks, and we're practicing 1, maybe 2 days a week and having games. So being able to manage your time for whatever the task at hand is, whether it's athletics, whether it's in your professional or business life, manage your time in a way that you can allocate the appropriate amount of hours, mental process, physical process into your craft. So time management, I think, is one of the biggest things. And, keeping that hunger and keeping that desire to continue to progress and improve. I think we've certainly seen it in sports, and this can happen a lot in life. If you get some early success, you may not stay as hungry. So keeping that hunger and the desire to always continually improve, because I'm a firm believer, if you're not continually improving, somebody's going to pass you by, and that applies in all aspects of life. So, so I think keeping that hunger, keeping that desire, and always continuing to strive to get better each and every day is qualities that apply across the board.
Character coach Ben Ives, who's episode 6 of this, I was having a long conversation with him, and he was shedding light on how COVID especially has really brought about this differentiation between pro and professional. And I probed on what he meant by that. And really what he meant by it was a professional seems to need the external setting to be successful, and having the schedule and having somewhere to be and somewhere to go to. And even if they're stuck in traffic, they're on their way to work and sitting down. And then the pro doesn't need that. They have these internal systems that they rely upon, this internal drive that makes them tick. And I love that kind of difference there. The other question I had for you, other than your biggest mentors in terms of the perspective that you've gained, was nobody gets to your level, Matt, without having such a high level of curiosity and knowledge. So this is more of an open-ended question. Are there any books, movies, or podcasts that you'd recommend that have had a huge impact on you over your time, or maybe a place where people can go to learn that has helped you in terms of adding to your mental arsenal?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm almost embarrassed to say I'm not a huge reader. As I've gotten older, I've tried to get more into reading and to learning through that medium. But I think through my experience, it's been learning from the people around me. And I know that, not everybody has the same environment that I have, that I've had. All our experiences are all different. But I would say that desire and that willingness to always want to learn more. And again, whether that medium is through books or movies or, emulating people around you. Those are all great ways to continue to improve and move forward. And for myself personally, it's been through, learning from others, whether that's in a team setting over the years, or as I mentioned earlier, my parents and my brother and other friends and family in my life that have really, led the way and shown me through example of how I want to act and how I want to achieve these things I want to achieve. So I think, in that same vein, as I mentioned, I'm hoping to pick up different areas. And you've mentioned a few of the books on this interview already in this podcast that I'm going to go pick up and go read, because it's something that I haven't done a lot in the past. And, I think if you're always looking to continue to learn, that's going to put you in a great spot going forward.
And the reason why I brought up that season of a man's life earlier, and it goes off your perspective on the observation front, is, nobody really rolls out a red carpet and tells you how to do this thing called life. So it's up to you to go seek out those kind of mentors and leaders, just like I found you. I was lucky enough. I don't think that was coincidence. I think it was something where I saw a guy like yourself finding success already. I already had watched you in your successful days at Syracuse, and I've said the story before, but I wanted to earn my way deeper into the locker room. You remember me sitting down right next to Phipps in our Bayhawks locker room, and I wanted to make my way back. I love the idea that you gave. If you're not continually improving, someone's going to pass you by. You said that was a firm belief of yours, and I love that idea. If I was to ask you a more vague question, a broad stroke question, I would ask you, what makes you tick, Mac? What makes you tick on like a day-to-day perspective? You say something like, if you're not continually improving, someone's passing you by. I have to ask you, what drives you to keep improving?
Yeah, it's really multiple reasons. First and foremost is for my family, and that, growing up, it was, my parents and older brother and my sister, wanted to make them proud and to not necessarily prove them right, but to sort of show that the everything they instilled in me from a young age. I was willing to take that and learn from it and grow into the man that I've become. And obviously, as I've gotten older, and it's now my wife, Aleda, and my son, Landon. That's what really is my driving force every day with everything I do. It maybe sounds cheesy or corny, but it's true. So they've Aleda certainly supported me in my career, both on the lacrosse field and professional life, for going on 20 years now. And that we've got Landon, it's trying to lead by example and hope that as he grows up, I could do half a good as job as my parents did, and I think he'll be doing just fine. So those are certainly my driving factors on the field, off the field, and in life. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the future holds.
Awesome. And in a nutshell, family. I love that answer. It doesn't need to be a long one. I have two more questions, and the first one would be: is there any topic or question that you wish I would have asked but didn't?
No, I think that we certainly got a lot of stories and catching up over the years from the experiences that we shared. So I think you hit on all the good ones. From a general theme perspective, I certainly I do want to bring up some of the times that I cherish that didn't come up in questioning was, maybe you've talked about this before, but our times with the Bayhawks, we got to spend some time with Ella Edwards, and going through her journey. I don't know if folks know her story or not, but she's somebody that I still think about a lot. I'm Facebook friends with her and her parents, and following her journey through her battle with cancer, and then her beating cancer and surviving it and continuing to beat it every day of her life. Ella was somebody that we got introduced to through the Bayhawks as she was going through her battle with Ewing sarcoma. And, she's somebody that inspires me even to this day, even though I haven't seen her in a little while. Follow her on social media, and it's continually, seeing what she went through and how she overcame it and continues to overcome it with what she does. It's truly inspiring. And I know you shared that same experience with me, as we had many meetings with her over the years. And that's something that I'll certainly always cherish. And I look forward to seeing what she's going to continue to do as she grows up.
Yeah, I would say it's moving on every sense of the word. I remember being a young pro, and me and Mike Evans were asked to go play cards at her house. And I think that's where you and I really started to connect on a much deeper level about the philosophical things about life. And moving also on the front that I ran the New York City Marathon for Ella. And I think I think about her all the time as well. And to see her take something that had a small chance of coming back and she's just demolished it is really impactful and motivating. Even to this day, I think about that really often. And thank you for bringing that up. Matt, I brought you on here because I've seen your greatness unfold over the years, and I was lucky enough to follow the footsteps of you as a young pro. If I was to put you in the hot seat and ask the question that I always finish off with, which is what does greatness look like to you? How would you define it?
Greatness to me is it's multifaceted. It's in a team setting like lacrosse. I view greatness as being a dependable, loyal, hardworking teammate, somebody who is selfless and willing to sacrifice of themselves for the betterment of the team. And a lot of those qualities, I think, apply in other aspects of life. And again, we've just experienced that through the lens of lacrosse, first and foremost. There's no wrong answer, but to me, that's what greatness is. It's somebody who's willing to do what it takes for the betterment of the team. And there's no guarantee that that's going to play out with on-field success. But I feel if you do those things consistently enough, the results will take care of themselves.
One of my models, I guess, in the field of psychology is a guy named Jordan B. Peterson. Wrote a book called 12 Rules for Life. And one of his rules was rule number 3, make friends with people who want the best for you. I certainly have done that with you, Matt, and I appreciate you coming on. I want you to know how much, even publicly here, how much of an impact you've made on me as a midfielder, but also as a young man. So thanks for everything.
Well, Glick, thank you. And the feeling is most definitely mutual, and look forward to getting back out there again next year and having some battles on the lacrosse field. It'll be fun.